Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out over at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. Also find this YouTube show, I guess you could say, in podcast form. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search Packer Fan Total Access. Make sure you subscribe to that and give us a 5-star review. We are pretty much on every streaming platform now. Obviously, YouTube, we're on X, we're on Rumble, we're on Facebook. X has been a little hiccupy here lately. We're trying to get that straightened out on the StreamYard side. Also, you can find this on iTunes. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Podcast Republic, iHeartRadio, everywhere in between. Hopefully, everybody's having an awesome morning here. It is February 22nd. Thought, let's jump in here, man. Let's grab a cup of coffee. Let's talk a little Green Bay Packers. And specifically, we're going to talk about a consensus top free agents list that Acme Packing Company put together. You guys can find it over there at their website, and I will link you guys to that as well for easy access. They did a great job of taking some of the most reputable, I guess you could say, sites and information, bases to kind of compile a list of, all right, who from a consensus standpoint does everyone see as the top free agents in this year's free agent class? And then, of course, we're also going to dive into a little Elton Jenkins topic here, where no one would be surprised if Elton Jenkins didn't return to the Packers. I think some of us were thinking there'll probably be a restructure or they'll cut him loose type thing. It sounds like, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, and I definitely want to get the chat's take as we dive into this, sounds like Elton Jenkins may be gone. Like it's almost sounds like the decision has already been made. And again, that shouldn't surprise anybody. But at the same time, it's like we talked about when you reach that February 15th point, if a restructure doesn't happen in the next 2 to 3 days, which we're kind of beyond that now, we're 7 days into this process. If you don't hear about restructures happening for, say, Elton Jenkins, Aaron Banks, Rashan Gary, those type of players, the writing may be on the wall that they're just going to cut them right before the new league year. Now, they still got time to put that together. It just seems like more often than not, when it comes to Goody, he gets those restructures done a little bit early. We always use the Aaron Jones restructure and the Preston Smith restructure as kind of a baseline in terms of what kind of timeline to expect those deals getting done. So as it sits right now, if I had to put betting money on whether or not those three guys would return, I think there's zero chance that all three return. I think there's a little bit less of a chance that two of them return, and I think the greatest chance would be you'll probably have one of those guys returning. And now the question becomes, is it Aaron Banks or Rashan Gary? But we'll dive into why that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, that it sounds like Elton Jenkins is gone based off some very, very good sources, I guess you could say, with articles written. So before we get into everything, if you guys would do that YouTube stuff for me, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your Sunday morning. We are not experts. We are not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans like you talking Packers on a daily basis. So make sure you hit like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss out whenever we do randomly go live with breaking news. Pretty much 365 days a year. That's what this channel, I would like to get this channel to the point where there's always something live on the channel 24/7. Don't know if that's something we can accomplish, but that's what we see for this channel here in the future. But appreciate everybody jumping into the chat. I see Chris already in here. Chad Inc., good to see you, buddy. We got Cannonball John. Good morning to you, sir. H.E. Solder in the house as well. And Brambo in the house here as well. We'll kind of hit on a couple of these. Let's just start off hanging out with the chat, then we'll get into free agency talk. Okay, Chris N says, it seems this Gannon D needs more pass rushers. I hate the idea of being so reliant on Parsons the first season after the injury. We all know it's usually until the second season back from ACL to hit. I think it's a fair point, Chris. I think that's a good observation too, man, because when you look at what Gannon wants to do, he wants to get pressure with 4, right? And I know that's going to tick a lot of people off, but at the same time, there's some give and take there. I know the worry is, well, crap, we got to be able to hit home with 4. We better have good pass rushers. We better get somebody alongside Micah Parsons. When you think about, okay, who would you like to bring in? what's the name that comes to mind? Let's say free agency, right? Like who's the edge defender you would like to bring in? Because when I hear pass rusher, I think edge defenders. Obviously, a 3-tech would be huge. You can go out and try to get the best pass rushing 3-tech. I think that would be a good idea. Now, who is that? Is it Logan Hall? Is it going to be David Onyemata? Is it going to be Calais Campbell? Is it going to be, Levi Ozarike? Who would it be? Many people say Khalil Mack. Go get me Khalil Mack, right? Here's a fun stat for you guys. I know, and I'm not saying Chris is doing, I'm not saying anybody in particular, but you guys know if you're on social media or you're in the chat sometimes or any, Facebook, Lord knows it's happening on Facebook. Everyone loves to kind of rake Gary over the coals, right? The reality is Rashan Gary last year had 12.1% pressure rate, right? With 7.5 sacks. Khalil Mack had 13.1 with 5.5 sacks. Khalil Mack couldn't stay healthy. I think he played in 12 games, right? So they had almost the same exact pressure percentage, just about 1% different there, right? And then when you take into the run stop consideration, Rashan Gary finished with 34 run stops. He led our team. Him and Kobe Wooden led our team in run stops, depending on which website you look at. Khalil Mack only had 26. So if you go and get someone like Khalil Mack thinking you're fixing your pass rush problem or you're adding a more consistent pass rush to it, expect two things realistically. He's going to play far fewer snaps than Rashan Gary because he couldn't stay healthy. Theoretically speaking, of course, this may be the healthiest he's ever been in his career. I get that, right? But expect two less sacks and a little bit more quarterback pressure percentage, but far fewer run stops. So when you look at those as a whole, right? What you're essentially saying is expect your run defense to get worse, get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, but not get as many sacks, right? And that's just simply looking at the numbers. I like to remove names. I could have teed that up and said, which one would you rather have? And I think everybody would have said, give me the guy with 7.5 sacks and 34 run stops, right? And Chris didn't specifically mention Khalil Mack. That's just a name that gets tossed around, right? That's one of many names that gets tossed around. Now, listen, there's a Myles Garrett out there. He wants to come play for the Packers. That's a whole different ballgame, right? Max Crosby, if he was available and he wanted to come play for the Packers, that would make a lot of sense. Not cap wise, right? That's the other thing when you're modeling your roster out. You got to make sure that you got enough money at each position or each position group. You don't want to model a roster where we're paying 3 edge defenders top 10 edge money, and now you can't afford anything else across your team. You got a backup caliber quarterback because you paid all that money to pass rushers, right? So we've kind of spent our money on Micah Parsons. We can now free up money if you move on from Gary, but with the caveat that your run defense is going to get significantly worse without Rashan Gary, right? The other thing to take into consideration, people say Enigbare is better than Gary. He played better than Gary. That's not true. It's simply not true. Enigbare, again, if I were to ask you which player would you rather have 12.1% pressure rate or 10.4? You'd say 12.1. Well, you just picked Rashan Gary. If I were to say, would you rather have 7.5 sacks or 2 sacks? You would say 7.5 sacks. Well, you just picked Rashan Gary. If I said, would you rather have 34 run stops or 25 run stops? You'd say 34 run stops. You just picked Rashan Gary. So again, when you remove the name and you remove all the hype and the buzz on social media where people just absolutely hate this guy, it's not necessarily the best move, right? So back to what Chris said with pass rushers, for me, yeah, if you could find a pass rusher just hanging out there somewhere, we could sign him for a decent contract. Go get him. If you're talking about moving on from Rashan Gary and investing a significant amount of money into going and getting Khalil Mack, I just can't justify that because I think there's more of a chance that you can get Rashan Gary to restructure his deal, take a pay cut, and keep him for less than what Mack would take on the open market. And again, we'll see what Mack's market look like. It may hit rock bottom this year. That could happen, right? So it's just it's interesting to kind of see how everything kind of falls into place there. H.E. Solder says, and there was no reason to keep Jenkins. Not sure what you mean by that. I don't know if that was a question or if that was just it looks like a comment, so we'll read it as it's written. And there was no reason to keep Jenkins. I agree. If the comment is, why would you keep Elton Jenkins on this team? I completely agree, Soder. Some people think moving back to left guard, he was way better there. That's not true. He has declined for the last several years, right? That's something that's continuously happened. He signed his, I don't remember when he signed his deal. His best year, I think, was 2021. He has declined every year since 2021, and injuries have kind of piled up. I think it is time to move on from Elton Jenkins. However, if Elton Jenkins is willing to take a sweetheart of a deal, or if he was to go test the market and the market ain't there and we can get him at 7 million, 8 million, I'd love to have Elton Jenkins back. Because again, Elton Jenkins playing center for you, right? 19th in pressure percentage at that price, to me, is worth having him on the roster. And then if you find somebody better in the draft, you've kind of covered all bases, right? And maybe you do slide him back to guard or what have you. The goal is to get the best 5 out there without moving guys crazily out of position, right? So I think that's a great point. So Brambo says, my theory is most of them decisions have been made, which is why Rich is walking. Yeah, could be. I wonder, when he stepped down, when Rich stepped down, I immediately thought, ooh, I wonder if they told Keyshawn he's not coming back. And that decision had been made, right? But then Keyshawn tweeted out a broken heart emoji, like he was sad that Rich Bisaccia wasn't returning. So that immediately made me think, well, maybe Keyshawn is going to be on the team. And it's like, dang, it sucks he's not going to be here with us anymore. Of course, it could just be a very general comment too, like, man, hey, this sucks. Going to miss him, but we're both going to different places too. Could be the case as well, right? And again, this is that time of year where there's not a whole lot going on. So we're reading in between tweets. We're trying to decipher this and that, and the third. Things get really, really interesting there too. Obviously, you can kind of paint any picture you wanted to at this moment, right? Especially with it being lying season, I should say. Chris says, we need a veteran 3-tech, Clayton, in my opinion. Completely agree. I'm not sold that Wyatt is the guy. This may be the year he sells us, Chris. But boy, oh boy, if we go out there going, it's going to be the guy, we can't be mad when we're disappointed, right? Now, when you look at 3-techs, again, like Bill Belichick said, 3-techs aren't growing on trees. You know, everybody thinks they got a 3-tech. Very few teams do. Many people, I think, within the organization think that we've got our 3-tech in Devontae Wyatt. I mean, yeah, he's a good pass rusher, no doubt about it. What are you going to do about run stopping? You know, his run defense has been pretty darn bad. So that's the big issue there. Now, when you look at the defensive tackles we like in free agency, you got a Calais Campbell, you got a David Onyemata, you got a Levi Ozarike, if I'm saying it right, and then you got Logan Hall. Logan Hall is kind of an ascending player, although I think we would agree he hasn't lived up to that second-round talent. If his market value is down around the 5 to 8 million range, that'd be a great signing. If that market value has changed, and I haven't checked it lately, and it adjusts, and all of a sudden you got to pay him 10 million, me no likey that, right? So that's a very interesting one as well. So we'll see what his market is, and you usually get a good idea on day one. If there's a lot of rumors, this team, and this team is interested in Logan Hall, then you go, okay, the market's going to be pretty heavy, right? Obviously, low supply, high demand is going to spike a cost increase, right? So if that happens with Logan Hall, you know, you could go get a veteran like David Onyemata. You could go get a veteran like Calais Campbell, and immediately people will say, Calais Campbell's a nose. He's not just a nose. That's a guy that doesn't come off the field. He plays all 3 downs. He will kick over to 3-tech. He'll play a little 5. He can play a 4-eye. Now, can he play it like he did when he was 28? Probably not. The dude's damn near 40 years old, but he continues to play good ball. That's when you have these conversations. I'm glad Chris brought this up. When you have these conversations, for me, the problem is if it's easy for me to convince myself that we would be just as good at 3-tech with David Onyemata or maybe a Calais Campbell kicking over there in the nickel or a Logan Hall, what's that really say about Devontae Wyatt? And again, that's a guy that we spent a first-round pick on. He's got a $12 million cap hit this year, fully guaranteed. Will he be completely healthy by the start of the season? Will he continue to stay healthy? That's been the big MO there, is he's not been able to crack, 400 snaps. I think people have been, it seems like the number people mention is 400 snaps is what you're going to get out of him, right? So it's tough, man. It's tough. So, yeah. Let's see here. Let's hit this one real quick. This is what I'm talking about. Soder says, and Gary had pursuit speed that could have been timed by watching molasses flow in January. If his pursuit speed is so bad, how did he have so many run stops? Let's say that's true, and his pursuit speed is bad. And see, the popular thing on social media is they have grabbed one clip of 2 defenders chasing a quarterback to the sideline. Gary is behind the first defender. The first defender's full sprint, and as he closes in on the sideline, Gary kind of pulls up, right? If his pursuit speed is so bad and he still had more run stops than Khalil Mack and Enigbare, I imagine you would think Enigbare's pursuit speed isn't bad, right? Then how did Gary have 34 run stops to Enigbare's 25? How did Gary, if Gary is so slow at getting to the quarterback, how did he have a 12.1% pressure rate, but Enigbare only had 10.4? Now, if the answer, the question, the comment, whatever, however you want to word it, is let's kick Gary inside, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you get Gary back and you restructure that deal and you let him rotate at 3-tech with Devontae Wyatt, I really like that idea because Gary does play with power. And Gary's superpower has never been he's a blazing speed, open field runner, right? It's very rare you need that anyway. You need that quick burst and you need that power at the point of attack. This time of year, people get very, very, very excited about 40 time, right? And quickness when it comes to pass rushing. And you guys know one of the guys that I trust the most in NFL draft analysis is Greg Cosell. Greg Cosell talks about it all the time. And he's like, you have to be able to rush with power at the NFL level. If you can only rush with speed, you're not going to make it. Like people immediately, their argument will probably go to, well, Micah Parsons rushes with speed. He does. But you've also seen him blow up and run straight through a double team block with pure power. He's a freak of nature, right? And hopefully he keeps that. He continues that after the ACL. But you got to be able to rush with power. And that's what Gary does. And lo and behold, there's two of them, right? That came out of Michigan at the same time. I'll never forget this. You had Rashan Gary and you had Chase Winovich. And many people said, okay, they're both going to be edge defenders. That's kind of what they were projected at because Rashan Gary's RAS, he was a freak. Like he had a good 40 time. It was great measurables across the board. We could pull it. I'm sure you'd probably be surprised. Chase Winovich on the opposite side, right? So they were both considered edge defenders. And PFF put a tweet out. You can still find it to this day. If you go to PFF, just their Twitter account, unless they deleted it now, and you just search, hit the search bar at the top, and you type in Rashan Gary, Chase Winovich, it'll probably pop up. They said Rashan Gary was going to be a bust and Chase Winovich was going to be the better player. Chase Winovich hasn't been in the league, to the best of my knowledge, for a while now. He didn't last hardly any time with the New England Patriots, and he may have played for another team. He may be on a backup role somewhere too. But again, why did I see that tweet and laugh at it? Because obviously PFF didn't go watch the tape. When you go and watch the tape, you've seen Rashan Gary playing a 3-tech inside and playing with power. Again, go back to what Greg Cosell says. You got to be able to rush with power at the NFL level. You got to. So now, if you've got quickness and power, that's great. Think about LVN. Would anybody say that LVN has lived up to his first round expectations? I don't think many Packer fans would say, oh, yeah, absolutely. He's played like a first rounder. I think we've seen progression. And this year, I really feel good about him taking another step, which maybe even be a more of a reason to either move Rashan Gary to 3-tech or just go ahead and cut him outright. But the big thing with him was that 40 time, if I remember correctly, how agile and quick he was for a big guy, right? And then he gets to the league and he didn't just run away with a starting position, a starting roster spot, right? Why is that? We expected him to be powerful, right? The combine suggested he's going to have so much brute strength it's not even funny. But again, does he play with power? Does he play with power on Sundays? And on Sundays, it's a lot different than college, right? So that's one thing I will say about what the way Greg Cosell looks at the pass rushers is a good starting point. Like when you look at some of these pass rushers is, do they rush with power? You want to know why he said last year Walter Nolan was the best defensive tackle in the draft when there was nobody else saying Walter Nolan was going to be the best defensive tackle. There was like some people have Walter Nolan 5 and 6 on their list. Prominent people, like people that know what they're doing too, right? But his main thing was this is the best defensive lineman in this draft, and he rushes with power. You've got to be able to rush with power. And that's exactly what the same MO for Jalen Carter was as well. That's why I look at our boy Peter Woods, and I'm a little bit like people are comparing him to Jalen Carter this year, and I don't see it. I mean, they're both 6'3" and they both weigh about the same. Yeah, I mean, we could find 50 players in the draft that look like 50 players in the league. It doesn't mean they're going to play like them, like stylistically, and also in terms of deployment within their college programs. How were they used? That stuff matters too, right? It does. So Mike Witt with Super Chat. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, the more I think about it, I think we're going to bring Kenny home after Jerry cuts him. A defensive line of Micah, Wyatt, Kenny, LVN, Sorrell, and Oliver. I think we cut Gary, just a gut feeling. I could see that happening with cutting Gary. And again, I want to be very clear. I do not want Gary back this year at the, what's the cap hit here? $28 million cap hit this year. Everything that's been said about Gary the last 2 and 3 years, this is the year it should be being said, because the cap number finally got to the point where it's like, okay, now this is unreasonable. The fact that he led your team in pressures, sacks, and run stops until Micah got here, tells me that those lower cap hit numbers were well worth the money. Well, now it's time to move on. And that's where you got to tip your cap to Goody. He protected himself. Now, you're only going to free up $11 million if you cut him, but I think we would all agree, if you feel better about Micah, Wyatt, Kenny, LVN, Sorrell, and Oliver, if you do go out and try to get a Kenny Clark, if that's the case, then give me the $11 million, right? But if you're telling me that LVN is going to finish, and I should have looked that up. Actually, I think I've got it right here. Let's take a quick look here. I won't put it on the screen, but I'll read it to you guys and gals. LVN finished at 11.2%. Okay. Gary was 12.1%. So if you're telling me those numbers are going to switch this year, and let's say Gary continues to decline and gets down to around 10 to 11% pressure, and LVN jumps up to the 12 or 13%, absolutely. Cut Gary, free up the $11 million. LVN's the guy moving forward. I think that's probably the plan, to be honest with you, Mike. That's what would make the most sense to me, for sure. And I'd be on board with it, man. I think that'd be awesome. So, appreciate the Super Chat, pal. And as far as Kenny, it depends on the price. Kenny played pretty good ball last year for Dallas. He's going to be asked to do something totally different with Jonathan Gannon, obviously, and how he kind of, sees everything, right? Defensively, I guess you could say. So appreciate the Super Chat, Mike. Got one more here from Mike. He says, with Jacobs getting older, Lloyd always hurt. My hot take, running back is a sneaky D for the Packers in the draft. Thoughts on my hot take, Clayton? This is what Jacob brung up the other day, and we've been diving into it pretty extensively. Here's the problem with that, Mike. If you could tell me Lloyd's going to be hurt again this year, it makes all the sense in the world. But what if you go out and you spend the 52nd pick? And to be clear, Mike did not say spend the 52nd pick, right? He did not say that. But if you go out and you spend the 52nd pick on a running back and Marshawn Lloyd's completely healthy, and that 52nd overall pick sits on the bench all year long because it's going to be Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, it's kind of a wasted pick for a Super Bowl window year, right? We're in year 2 of 3 here. Now, if you're saying, hey, get me a solid back at pick 120 or later, I'm all about it. And I think there's some backs late in this draft that they're very interesting to me. We could pull up the board and highlight them, but obviously it's not kind of what we're talking about here. But it's one of those situations. How do you feel about Lloyd? And maybe Goody has to make that decision. Maybe he's already made a decision by getting the doctor's hands on Marshawn Lloyd and going, okay, we feel as good as we ever have about his health, or I'm still seeing some of the same issues. I don't think he'll hold up. Maybe that'll be the determining factor, right? But once again, you're talking about a 3rd round pick that Goody swung and missed on, and we were excited about it. Marshawn Lloyd, according to Daniel Jeremiah, was the best running back in the draft the year we took him. So that was a great pick. I don't want to sit here and play hindsight and go, oh, what was Goody thinking? No, injuries happen. But I know what we need to do is we got to start doing something extra and figuring out why these young guys are always hurt. There's something off. There's something really, really bad. It just seems like it's bitten us in the last 2 years way more than any other team, if that makes sense. So, all right, Mike, thank you so much, buddy, for the super. We appreciate you, man. If you guys are watching this video back later, let us know what you think about the pass rusher talk. How do you feel about Rashan Gary? Is it time to move on? Would you rather see him back at a pay cut? Would you Would you just cut him outright, free up the 11 million? And here's the other thing too. You can go post June 1 and free up 19.5 million. You just got to carry that $28 million cap hit until June. And obviously that doesn't help you in free agency. So that might be a long-term decision that they make right out of the gate as well. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like for us, hit subscribe, click that bell icon. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, boys and girls, let's move it along here. Let's move it along to a little free agent talk. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but I want to get into this. Now I want to give a shout out to the people that compiled this information. Okay. And that's over at Acme Packing Company. I see you, Chris. I'll get that here. Actually, let's just hit it real quick, and then we'll jump into that. I'll reset here. Chris in with the super chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, love for keeping the Packer talk strong in late February. Got it. I rely on your show more than I'm willing to admit in an open forum. LOL. Go Pack Go. Hey, appreciate the kind words, Chris, and I appreciate you guys jumping in here, man. I'm telling you, this show would suck if I didn't log in every day and go, man, there's already 8 people watching. There's already 8 people chatting in the chat, and the Patreon group mentioned it and this and that, man. I'm a fan just like y'all. So if this chat was dead, this show would suck. You guys are the most important aspect, but greatly, greatly appreciate it, man. And we're going to keep this thing going, dude. It's February 22nd. We're going live multiple times a day. And hopefully you guys don't feel like it's just filler. You know, we're trying to give you breaking news segments. We're trying to give you a little deep dive and looking at everything from every angle. We got plenty of time to do that, right? So appreciate you, Chris. You're the man, buddy. You've supported us since day one. All right. So let's move along here to the consensus free agent list here. Okay. And I want to give a shout out. This was done really, really well by Acme Packing Company. Okay. And what I did was I attached the article here. So everybody go give that a click. It's way more in depth than the information I brung here from the article itself. What they basically did, and you guys can go check it out, like I said, at that link, they did a consensus top 100 players for 2026, right? According to data from 14 lists of free agency rankings, okay? So what they did was they made a consensus board of 14 different free agency rankings, which range from top 25s to lists that go on for hundreds of names. Why? Because I wanted to get a handle on what the perception of the 2026 NFL free agency class looks like. And I'm not sure there's a singular data point that looks like the truth to me. So again, that was done by, I think it was Justice Mosqueda over at Acme Packing Company. So you guys go check out that article. What I did was put the list in order of position of need for the Packers. Okay. And we're going to kind of dive into it in that regard. So I feel comfortable saying our top need is center. And what I mean by that is if we truly move on from Elton Jenkins, right, who is going to be your center? I'm really surprised, and I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong. I'm surprised at how many fans say, I'll just re-sign Sean Ryan and start him at center. I'm like, man, I don't feel that good about Sean Ryan. I think there's value there at the right price to have him as your backup center and compete for a starting guard job. But, man, let's be honest, his pass protection was horrible. It was really bad. His run blocking was kind of above average. Some would say good. I would say above average. So that checks the box. If he was above average run blocker, above average pass blocker, you know what I would say? I would be okay with signing him and him potentially being the starting center. That's just not what I've seen, right? And that's not what the analytics show as well. So when you look at the centers, here they are in the list of in order of where they rank in the free agent list according to the consensus list that Justice Mosqueda put together. Okay, centers. You got in the number 3 spot, Tyler Linderbaum. Okay, so he's the 3rd best free agent overall, but he is the top center. At number 25, you got Connor McGovern. At 79, you got Cade Mays. At 107, you got Ethan Pocic. And then at 184, you got Andre James. So again, Tyler Linderbaum here, guys, he's the home run. He is the dude you want to go get in free agency if you've got the money. If you move on from Elton Jenkins, you free up $20 million. You now have the money to go get Tyler Linderbaum. You're kind of trading those 2 players out. Some are saying Linderbaum will be around 16, 17 million per. Others will say that's crazy. It's going to be 22 to 25 per. None of them are mentioning how much guaranteed money. That's how you can shut those conversations up real quick because they go, oh, no, he'll get 16. Oh, no, he'll get 22. Based off what? How much guaranteed money? That's the determining factor. More guaranteed money, less AAV. Less guaranteed money, more AAV, i.e. cap, right? Essentially, you've got cash, which is the money paid to the player, and you got allocation, right? You've got how is the money distributed? How is it structured throughout the course of his contract, right? So the more cash or signing bonus you give for a player up front, you have way more flexibility. If you go to Tyler Linderbaum and said, hey, and I'm going to try to use easy numbers. I'm not saying this would be his number, okay? But let's say, hey, how about a 4-year, $80 million deal, okay? 4-year, $80 million deal. And another team says, we'll give you 4-year, $90 million, right? It makes sense. All things being equal, go for the $90 million, right? But what if the $80 million says, we'll give you $30 million guaranteed, and the $90 million says, we'll give you $15 million guaranteed? Guess what Linderbaum's going to do? He's going to the $30 million guaranteed. Give me that money in my pocket right now. So why does that make sense for a team to play cash over cap? That cash now, not only did it lower your overall AAV, therefore your cap hit's going to be lower, but also that cash can be distributed however you want over the course of the contract, as opposed to with an AAV approach, it's going to be a little more evenly distributed, right? So you can really trim numbers off the front side, or you could take a huge hit there up front, like Goody likes to do. If it's a 4-year deal, it's really a 3-year deal. If it's a 3-year deal, it's really a 2-year deal. In some cases, with Aaron Banks last year, the contract tells me everything about how they felt about Aaron Banks. Because when we signed him, we all went, what? I trust Goody, but boy, that don't make a whole lot of sense, right? And then you look at, and I kept saying, wait, let's get the contract. Let's get the contract. We get the contract numbers and we dive into it. And go, oh, wow. So this is really a 4-year deal that's only a 1, meaning they can get out after year 1. What does that mean? They can move on this year and free up $4 million. They could go post June 1 and free up $18 million. So it was really, does it look good that he ended up getting whatever it was, 24, whatever the guarantee was? And it looks like we paid him 1 year, 24 million or whatever. I'm just throwing a number out there. That looks bad on Goody too. So just because it's structured that way doesn't cover Goody's ass in sense of, hey, see, it was still a good signing because we came out clean. It didn't hurt us. No, it was a bad signing after 1 year. Maybe year 2, he's an all-pro. That could be the case. I don't see it because we didn't see it in San Francisco and we didn't see it in year 1 in Green Bay. But we'll see how that shakes out. Mike, I see your super chat, buddy. I'm going to get it after this segment. Appreciate you. So there's your center look, right? Offensive tackles. Rasheed Walker at the top of the list. What's that tell you about this tackle class, right? So Rasheed Walker at 8, Braden Smith 20, Jermaine Illuminor at 48, Braxton Jones 73, Jonah Williams 110, Trent Brown 121, Cam Robinson 132, Elijah Wilkinson 161, and Jack Conklin at 178. So if hands down Rasheed Walker, according to the consensus free agent list put together by Justice Mosqueda, if that holds true, right? If that holds true, Rasheed Walker is the best tackle on the market, and he's going to get, some are saying $22, $23 million a year. What's that tell you about the tackle market? You're probably going, Clayton, why are we even looking at tackle? Jordan Morgan's going to be left tackle. Zach Tom will be right tackle. It's a fair point. But what does Goody like to do? He likes to get tackles and move them to guard. So could one of these guys be on the list to play guard? Could they be an above average tackle and be a good guard? It's possible. We have to dive into each individual player, which we obviously don't have time to do that, right? At least today. But that's a look at the offensive tackles. Now let's get the guards. To me, the guard list is very intriguing. And it's cool to see Justice put together such an extensive list, because out of all the positions in free agency, this is the one I feel like you can get the help you need, right? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players earmarked on my list, okay? Here's the list he's got. Number 26, David Edwards. 28, Isaac Samala. 41, Elijah Vera Tucker. 42, Joel Bitonio. 57, Wyatt Teller. 60, Ed Ingram. 66, Kevin Zeitler. 72, Dylan Parham. 83, John Simpson. 84, Zion Johnson. 97, Greg Von Roten. 102, Dalton Reisner. 115, Daniel Falalale, if that's how you say it. 134, Tevin Jenkins. 180, Trevor Penning. 186, Chris Paul. 197, Dylan Raduns. And so there's all the guards list. Notice there's a lot more guards and tackles. So his list agrees with our list, right? And again, the ones I've got earmarked that I like is Isaac Samalo. In this case, they got him number 28 on his list. David Edwards, he's got it 26. I like Samalo a little bit more. Not necessarily more. I'd have to do an individual breakdown, but he's on my list as well. Elijah Vera Tucker's on my list. Joe Bitonio's on my list. Kevin Zeitler's on my list. Ed Ingram's on the list. And Tevin Jenkins is on the list. That's all I got on the list of the players that I like on this free agent list. So again, what do we always talk about? A low supply and high demand equals a price hike, right? Well, a high supply, low demand equals savings, right? The value is going to drop. It's going to be driven down. So when you approach it the offensive line as a whole, you could pay top dollar for center Tyler Linderbaum. You can try to get a little bit of a discount on Connor McGovern, but some people were saying he's going to be like $16 million per. So if that's the case, go ahead and give me Tyler Linderbaum instead of Connor McGovern, right? You're willing to overpay for great. You're not willing to overpay for good. And then you could go probably get a deal because the market's a little bit saturated with these guards. Now, will Goody do that? That's the question. Will he move on from Aaron Banks? I doubt it. History suggests that he's not willing to go, man, I made a mistake there. Let's move on after 1 year. It just hasn't happened. I mean, maybe I'm overlooking one, but you guys let me know in the chat if that's the case. So that's kind of a quick look at the offensive lineman. All right. Let's take a quick let's jump back here to the super chats real quick, and then we'll move on to the defensive side of the ball. Mike Witt with the super thank you, buddy, says, my other hot take, Sorrell takes a second-year leap this year and is starting by week 4. He reminds me so much of a young Zadarius Smith, and a young Zadarius Smith with his head on right, Mike. Stylistically, I can see what you're saying. I've got a lot of high hopes for Barron Sorrell. There's nothing I would love more. You want to talk about a perfect scenario for the Packers? Imagine this, guys. Imagine this. You go into this year, you move on from Rashan Gary, and you free up $11 million. Let's say you just make that decision. You got Micah Parsons on one side, LVN on the other, with a rotation of our boy Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver, right? And let's say you go get an edge defender in the draft, or you pick somebody up in free agency or whatnot. But what if, like Mike's saying here, what if by week 4 or 5, Barron Sorrell's so damn good you can't keep him off the field, right? And he takes LVN's job, you know? If that happens, then guess what? You let LVN walk, and you got Barron Sorrell for 3 years on a rookie deal that's not even $1 million, right at $1 million. You're saving money at arguably the most expensive position on defense, right? That would be absolutely awesome. Now you got to back up. All right, let's be realistic here, Mike. Let's be realistic, Clayton. What are the chances you hit on a 4th-round pick? Zach Tom ring a bell? You know, Romeo Dobbs, I think, he was arguably our best receiver while Christian was trying to get healthy through the years, right? We got him, in the 5th round? Yeah, there's precedent for that. Mike, that would be awesome, man. Sell me on that all day long, bro. H.E. Soda with the super. Thank you, Soda. Appreciate you. He said, the strength of this team with Kraft coming off an ACL is quarterback and wide receiver. The fastest way to leverage that strength is find a couple of pass blockers. That's a great point, Soda. Man, that's a great point. And you know, it's funny, too, because going into the season, I kind of felt like I'm feeling like, are we going to press into the pass a little bit more, you know, since the run didn't work? And maybe we really press into the pass to set up the run. Now, there's a little bit of data there to suggest we were already doing that. You guys, I've been very, very vocal pointing out that the second half against the Bears, people were saying Matt LaFleur went in his shell. He got too conservative and this and that. I'm like, y'all are not watching the game. We on the first 4 drives of the second half, we passed the ball 10 times and only ran it 4. And we had a huge lead. What game are you watching, right? So there's a little bit of precedent there, Soda, that we already kind of started that. And maybe it is Matt looking up and going, man, our receivers is a strong point of our team, especially with Matthew Golden. Guys, that play he made against the Bears where he made 17 people miss on one play, that's exciting stuff. If he gets this playbook down, and I think he'll be full go this year. I think he'll finally have the choice route down. I think he'll have all the ducks in line. I think this dude's going to take a huge year 2 leap. We would have loved to seen it last year, but this is going to tell whether Goody made the right pick with Matthew Golden or not, you know, because when you look at Matthew Golden and Luther Burden had the better rookie year, hands down. He had a better grab of the offense way quicker than Matthew Golden did. That's essentially the deciding factor. Now, doesn't mean that Matthew Golden won't go screaming by him and he has a sophomore slump. Could happen, right? Could happen. So I think it's a fair point there, Soda. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for the super, man. All right. So if you guys are watching this back later, let us know what you think about the offensive line free agents here in terms from a consensus standpoint. Which of those offensive linemen would you like to sign? Would you go break the bank for Tyler Linderbaum? There's your starting center. Would you pay a little bit less for a Connor McGovern? Would you go into the tackle position and kick them into guard, try to find a deal at tackle and kick them into guard? Would you just dip into the heavily saturated guard market there and just get one of those guys to plug into left guard? Maybe you want to move forward Aaron Banks. Let us know in the comments. Let's take the chat over there. Hit like for us, hit subscribe, click the bell icon as well. We greatly appreciate it. And also, that is going to wrap up hour 1. For those of you listening on the pod, we will see you on the other side for hour 2. We greatly appreciate you guys. All right, let's get into hour 2 here and dive into the second aspect of this, and that's getting to the second need on this list, and that's cornerback. Cornerback, oh, it's so interesting, man. I have such mixed feelings about Keyshawn Nixon. If he didn't get the personal fouls, the stupid personal fouls jumping on the pile and the whole tough guy antics, right? If he didn't have those, okay, my main knock on Keyshawn would be stop biting on double moves and play your damn assignment, right? Now, back up. If that wasn't an issue and you looked at the numbers, first of all, he wouldn't have given up all those touchdowns he did if he wasn't biting on double moves, to be honest with you. Keyshawn is not failing because he's hesitant. He's failing because he's too aggressive at times, in my opinion. Now, some people would say they want more aggressive players. I want someone who's going to play their scheme first and play through the whistle. That's the two most important aspects for me is understanding of what you're asked to do. Do your job. Bill Belichick 101. Do your job first and foremost. And two, you play with effort every single play through the whistle. And when I say through the whistle, that don't mean let me go jump on the pile. That means you make sure the play is over before you let up, right? That's the struggle I've had with Keyshawn. To the best of my knowledge, though, he did lead the league in pass breakups. Guys, that's valuable, whether we want to admit it or not. As personal as this has become for me with Keyshawn and getting frustrated with the whole him refusing to try to make a tackle at the goal line against the Bears, it's still you've got to look at everything. You've got to remove the bias. You got to remove the emotion. Go, okay, there's an argument to be made that Keyshawn Nixon was our best outside corner last year. Matter of fact, I don't think there's much of an argument to be made that anyone else was the better outside corner. So when you get him at $7 million cap hit and he's your best corner, I can understand why they want to keep him. But again, like I said, you've got to sit down with him, and you got to have Jonathan Gannon, and you got to have Bobby Babich and these guys sit down with him and go, listen, man, I would literally sit. I wouldn't do it in front of the team. I would sit down with Keyshawn in the room, and I would put that play up. As a matter of fact, I put a compilation up. I would have a compilation of him doing stupid stuff after the whistle, and then that play where he refused to make the tackle at the goal line. And I would just play it on loop and say, can't happen, man. Can you commit to us right now that this will not happen this year? Can you commit to that? And if the answer is yes, then we move forward, and that's going to be one of our cornerbacks that we got as a piece. Now we can go shopping in free agency and try to plug and play and draft somebody to put around him, right? I'm interested to know, Coach, is that how you would handle that? We got Coach Lynn in the chat. Is that how you would handle the Keyshawn Nixon situation, man? Would you handle it that way? Am I, as a fan, never having coached, am I being unrealistic to think that you couldn't have that meeting with the player? Obviously, you do it in private. You're not embarrassing in front of his teammates, right? You're not, hey, it doesn't come across to him and other people in the room like, well, they're just trying to look like a tough guy. They're just trying to make an example out of me. You could get them off to the side and go, man, listen, we want you here, but this cannot happen. I'm eager to know if what Coach Lynn thinks about that. I'm gonna rattle off these free agents real quick while we wait on that answer. Jalen Watson in the number 10 spot. You guys know that's arguably my favorite cornerback free agent this year. Looks like Justice Mosqueda agrees. Tariq Woolen at number 17. I do not like Tariq Woolen. I would not sign him. That's just me personally. Jamel Dean at 18. I like Jamel Dean. He's probably going to be priced a little bit too high. Number 43, Rashan Wright. He's coming from the Bears. Many people like Rashan Wright. I am not as big on Rashan Wright. Got a lot of interceptions, but everything other than that looked kind of to me, all right? Monteric Brown is an interesting one. I would be okay with Monteric Brown. Alontae Taylor, I do not like Alontae Taylor. Many people like him. I'm not big on him. Rasul Douglas, if you get last year's version and the 2023 version, yes. But if you get the 2024 version, cheeks. So there's too much inconsistency there for me to go, yes, definitely sign him, but he is on my list, okay? Next, you got Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes played horrible for the Packers, battled through some horrible leg injuries, right? However, bounced back last year, had arguably his best year of his career, right? So how do you feel about Eric Stokes? Kind of in the same ballpark as Rasul Douglas. Too much inconsistency for me. Cordell Flott, don't have him on my list. Chidobe Awuzie, I think is how you say it. He is on our list. I'd be okay with that one. Greg Newsome is not on my list. People love Greg Newsome because he was a high draft pick. Everything I've seen on Greg Newsome, never been sold. Wasn't sold when I think he was in Cleveland. Then he goes to Jacksonville, I think it was. Not sold on him at all. Would it be a horrible signing for the right price? No, but I don't think he's the answer to our cornerback room. Roger McCreary, he's on my list. I'd be okay with that. Trayvon Diggs, the fact that he had he's all pro caliber player, right? Dallas Cowboys defense was cheeks. He played one game for us and graded out in the 80s, and it looked like when I watched his tape and we broke his tape down against the Vikings there in week 18, it was like, this dude's the best corner on the team right now, hands down. It's not even close. You can tell he's better than Carrington. You can tell he's better than Keyshawn. You can see the talent difference, the way he attacks the ball, the fluidity in his hips, the way he turns and runs with receivers, the way he attacks underneath on smoke routes, things like that. You get to see a really good sample size. You get to see him chase a play from his side of the field all the way over and prevent a touchdown, right? And what was the big knock on Keyshawn Nixon? So I'd be okay with Trayvon Diggs at the right price. Some are saying $4 million. Others are saying going to be closer to 10, right? His previous AAV was 19. So when you look at all the numbers, take everything into consideration, if I can get him for 5 to 7 million, I'd be okay with Trayvon Diggs. Now, if I could get Jalen Watson for 5 to 7 million as opposed to Trayvon Diggs, it's Jalen Watson. It's not even close, okay? But Jalen Watson's probably going to warrant 10, 15 million, something like that, depending on where you're getting your information. Okay. Asante Samuel Jr., I would be okay with. I think he's played good enough ball and the price shouldn't be through the roof. He proved that he was through the injuries, to the best of my knowledge. You guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat there. I'm pretty sure he stayed fairly healthy last year when he played. Kobe Durant is not on my list. Mike Hilton is not on my list. Cam Taylor-Britt is not on my list. Joshua Williams, James Pierre, none of these guys are on my list either. So that's the guys that I like. All right. Is again, Jamel Dean, Jalen Watson, Asante Samuel, Rasul Douglas, Joshua Williams, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary, Monteric Brown, and Trayvon Diggs is the route I would go at cornerback. And I think Coach makes a great point. He says, take another shot at Samuel Jr. Remember, guys, we were on the short list of teams that he might potentially sign with. And I think he chose the Steelers over us, if I remember correctly. Take another shot at it, right? Which tells me Goody had a high draft grade on Asante Samuel Jr. No surprise. I think a lot of people did, right? I think a lot of people had that. So I'd be totally on board with that, Coach. Totally on board with that. With taking another shot at Samuel. And especially if you can get Asante Samuel for like $5 million, right? Again, $5 million, $5 million AAV, that kind of deal. And I don't know how long he would do that deal. It might just be a 1-year deal. If it's a 1-year deal, obviously you're on the hook for $5 million, right? Unless he gets hurt or something. There's some kind of language in the contract. But if it's like a 3-year, $15 million deal, i.e. $5 million AAV, and it's only $5 million fully guaranteed, then guess what? It's actually a 3-year deal. It's really a 1-year deal. And if he does fall flat, you cut bait next year, move on and fix the problem, right? So yeah. You got to be kidding me. In the chat says I'd take Diggs at 7. Got it, man. Got it. I would too. Yeah, I would too. Previous AAV was 19 million. Jerry Jones, smoking crack. Allegedly. That's not alleged. I shouldn't have said that. Jerry Jones made a bad decision giving him the 19 million per year, but he was coming off an all-pro year. All right. Look at me trying to be professional in here, man. That's what happens when Jacob ain't in-house, right? So taking Diggs at 7 million per, I'd be okay with it too. Because the 7 million, let's say it's 3 years, 21 million. So 7 million AAV. And let's say the guaranteed money is 10 million, right? And that seems like a little bit high of a number for a 3-year, $21 million deal. But essentially what you got is a 3-year deal that's really a 2. You're going to pay him 10 million over 2, and you can move on if you need to. Now, if he plays great, you've got him under contract for 7 million on average. The first year cap hit will probably be somewhere around 5 million. Then it'll jump to like 8, and then it'll jump to like whatever the remaining number is, 10 or 11, whatever it might be, right? That's typically how we structure these contracts when it comes to these type of players. So Chris in the chat said we needed Noah Williams, Coach. A lot of people like Noah. I know we talked about Noah a lot. I can't remember where he was on our board. We did a little breakdown on that the other day, but Noah Williams. There's a lot of players that you're going to see Goody pass on in this draft, and you guys are going to get tired of hearing me say it. You're going to call me. You're going to say I'm copping out, and I get it. I completely understand. I kind of agree with you. I just don't want my ego to get out of line, man. Like I can't sit through a live draft stream like we do, and go, oh, what a horrible pick, just because our board says it's a horrible pick. I can't get myself to try to acknowledge or convince anyone that I understand player evaluation better than Brian Gutekunst, right? I just can't get there. And I'm never going to get there because Goody has forgot more about football than I'll ever know. And some people are going, Clayton, you're down on Goody. I am down on Goody. But it doesn't mean that I'm the grand poobah of draft coverage, right? If that makes sense. So when you look at that as a whole, I think Goody is a good GM. He's not a great GM, you know. And without the Jordan Love draft choice, he's not a good GM. He's probably a average GM. That one pick of Jordan Love, boy, it really propelled, and that's an important pick. And he had the huevos to trade up and get him. Well, you had a Hall of Famer on the roster, right? So, yeah, seems like more people are a little more down on Goody today because we're it's kind of wearing thin. Patience is wearing thin. It's like we continue to march out the youngest roster in the league, and we're not getting over the hump, and we keep kind of doing the same thing over and over. So, yeah, there you go. There is your cornerback deep dive in terms of the consensus room. Again, Jalen Watson at number 10, Tariq Woolen 17, 18 is Jamel Dean, 43 Nashawn Wright, and 62 Monteric Brown. Out of those top 5, the one I don't like is Tariq Woolen. I think he's a little bit overrated. That's just me personally. So if you guys are watching this back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the cornerback free agent class? Is there a player on here that you like the most? Is it Watson? Is it Woolen? Maybe you love Woolen, man. Hit me up in the comments and say, here's why I like Woolen. Give me a description of and sell me on it. You might be able to convince me, and let us know which other players here on this list you like. Hit that like button for us. Hit subscribe. Click the bell icon. We would greatly, greatly appreciate that as well. All right. Let's move along now to trying to make notes as we go, man. We're organized this morning. Look at us. Look at us. Let's jump on over now to another sneaky need, is interior defensive lineman. Chris Ian's going to love this one, boy. He is going to love this talk. So defensive tackle in terms of free agency. I've got my cheat sheet, right? I've got 4 players on my cheat sheet. I'm going to go ahead and read them off so you guys know before we dive into this list. And if you watch the show, this isn't something that I lined it up with their list. I've had my cheat sheet for a while now. I like Calais Campbell. I like David Onyemata. I like Levi Ozarike at the right price. He's not my favorite. And I like Logan Hall. All these guys are different. Calais Campbell is a mountain of a man who could play nose tackle, and he can also kick into 3-tech if you need him to. Okay. So he would kind of take over for Kobe Wooden. Hopefully Devontae Wyatt's healthy. Let those guys work in unison together. And then when Devontae Wyatt comes off the field for a breather, maybe Calais Campbell kicks over to 3-tech. You bring Kobe Wooden into play nose, that type of approach, right? So I like Calais Campbell. David Onyemata. He's like 34, 35 years old. So he's an older vet as well. I like him a lot. I think he would instantly upgrade your defensive tackle room just like that, unless he hits the wall this year, right? Unless he hits the wall. Next on the list for me would be Logan Hall. Now, Logan Hall is a little bit different. He has not played at the level, in my opinion, that Calais Campbell and David Onyemata has. But Logan Hall is 25 years old. So you got a guy that's going to continue to get better, right? He's ascending. He's every year was like a 40, a 50. Now he's in the 60s. And you're seeing a guy that's getting better every single year. So Logan Hall is kind of built like a 3-tech. I think he's predominantly a 3-tech top defensive tackle. If you can get him for the right price. Now, his age may skyrocket his value. People will go, wow, we're getting him in his prime, if indeed he does make it to free agency, right? Because, again, these teams could re-sign these players too. There's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts before the free agency actually starts. But I would put Logan Hall ahead of Ozarike, okay? So those are the 4 I like. Now, let's go to the list they've got here. And again, this is Justice Mosqueda putting together a consensus list over at Acme Packing Company. All right, so you guys make sure you go give that a click and make sure you're following everybody there. Let's support those that did the legwork to get this information, okay? Interior defensive lineman at number 32, John Franklin Myers. I'm not as big on John Franklin Myers as most people are. At 59, they got Calais Campbell. I would be on board with it, like I said. 61, David Onyemata. 71, DJ Reader. A lot of people like DJ Reader. I'm not big on DJ Reader. I'm just not. Now, when you look at those top 4, 2 of those are on my top 4, right? So DJ Reader is the first one that you get to the list and you go, yeah, not there. Well, actually, John Franklin Myers, I think he's a little bit overrated as well. Now, can he play better under Jonathan Gannon? It's possible. Totally possible, right? 85, you got Sheldon Rankins. 88, you got Daquan Jones. 119 is Levi Ozarike. I always screw the name up, man. 120, Sebastian Joseph Day. 139 is Logan Hall. 158 is Deshaun Hand. 173 is Roy Lopez. 181 is Tim Saddle. So if you were to go, I'm going to ask a question to the chat. Now, I think I know the answer. If you could get Calais Campbell at $8 million or David Onyemata at $8 million, one of those 2 guys, would you rather sign one of those 2 at $8 million, whichever one's your pick, okay? Or would you rather go get Ozarike and Logan Hall for a combined $10 million? You see what I'm saying? Like, you're taking two swings, really bolstering up the defensive tackle position, right? And bang, for a little bit more than just signing one of those two players. Now, Calais Campbell's salary last year was $5.5 million, right? That's what he made last year. So if you can get him at $5.5 million and David Onyemata at $8 million, I'm okay with that too, right? I'm just simply saying, if you had to choose and say, let's say that Calais Campbell or David Onyemata, their number was around $10 million per year. If you had to pay that for one person, I would rather take a swing on Ozarike and Logan Hall together. Does that make sense? So I would love to approach it that way, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a look at the defensive tackle position. See what the chat's saying real quick. Well, actually, let's go back. Coach Lance says Goody missed on Devin Lloyd. Also, he did, Coach. He did. It seems like I want to be clear. Like, there's always going to be times. You're always going to have times where every draft you can look up and go, we should have taken this player instead of that player. You can always do that, right? Every draft you can do that. We did a mock draft with our draft board the other day. We used PFF's mock draft, and we actually took the players off our board. And you could see, boy, that's a horrible pick. That's horrible. You could do that, right? What I'm noticing here recently is more times than not, we find ourselves taking a player at a specific position over a guy that's higher on our board, right? And lo and behold, it doesn't work out. For example, let's go back to Josh Myers and Creed Humphrey. You took Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey. Creed Humphrey is arguably the best center in the game, guys. The best center in football. And we're trying to defend Goody saying, no, there's nothing wrong with that. No, Goody's drafting just fine. Everybody misses. Everybody misses. And then if you point the misses out, the people that think Goody does no wrong, they come at you, like, oh, just stop crying. Stop crying about it. Just stop crying about it. It's just like the special teams situation, right? You point out over and over and over, guys, this has been a special teams problem since the early 2000s. This is something systemically that's happening. This is how West Coast offense roster builds are built, as opposed to a Belichickian type roster build, as opposed to other teams that put a lot of emphasis. Their general manager puts a lot of emphasis on special teams. It is what it is. So you got the Josh Myers, and you've got the Josh Myers. Taking Josh Myers over. Gosh, the name's evading me now. The Chiefs center. Can't believe I forgot it. Drawing a blank now. Got so many names running through my mind. I just said it. Anyway, Creed Humphrey. Sorry, Creed Humphrey. So you take Myers over Creed Humphrey, swing and a miss, right? You take Quay Walker over Devin Lloyd, if I remember correctly, swing and a miss. I don't know if that's the same draft or not. You guys double check me there. That's the two names that get kind of comped. I think it was the same draft, right? That was a swing and a miss evaluation on two specific players. Well, Clayton, that was years ago. Let's move on. We time to move. Okay, let's move on to last year. Luther Burden was higher on our board. We took Matthew Golden. Luther Burden had a much better year than Matthew Golden did, right? Caught on to the offense a lot quicker and was more impactful. It is what it is. It doesn't mean Matthew Golden's not going to be a better player, but it is what it is. You go back. All right, that's just one player. All right, let's go to our second round pick. We took Anthony Belton in the second round. He was 120 on our board. We passed up on Ozzie Trapillo and took Anthony Belton. Ozzie Trapillo ended up being the far better player. He was like 76 on our board, and Anthony Belton was 120. And again, I'm the asshat sitting on the live stream going, hey, guys, we got to trust Goody here. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He didn't know what he was doing. It is what it is. Now, will Belton be a better player this year? I sure hope so. Belton may be an all-pro from here on out, and Ozzie Trapillo may sink like a rock. And we're going to credit Goody if that's the case. We're not going to be biased here. We're not going to just, let's steer the conversation different. We're going to go, you know what? He knew Anthony Belton had a much higher upside and ended up being the far better pro, right? 1 year doesn't determine that. I get that. At the same time, this stuff continues to add up. It continues to. Kenneth Walker, a lot of people passed up on Kenneth Walker. We had him around the 120 mark, if I remember correctly, somewhere around that range on our board. And he fell all the way like the 6th or 7th round. Well, everybody missed. Okay, so because everyone else missed, we're not allowed to say, why can't our GM figure that out? It's biased argument, it really is. So, again, when you look at defensive tackle this year, if we go to the draft instead, of trying to get one of these 4 guys I like in free agency. You've got Caden McDonald at 21, he'll be gone. Caleb Banks at 23, he'll be gone. Peter Woods at 31, he'll be gone. Kristen Miller at 33, he'll be gone. Lee Hunter at 41, I feel comfortable now saying he's going to be gone. Some people are saying he may creep up in the first round. That's wild to me, but some people believe that. So the realistic shot that you have at 52 is Darrell Jackson out of Florida State and Big Citrus, Dominic Orange at 99. And you're going to be reaching at 52. The board is not lining up as it sits right here on February 22nd. The board is not lining up for us to be able to get a defensive tackle at 52. You can, but you're going to reach and get a backup caliber player, future potential starter at 52. When you're probably going to be passing up on a cornerback like, I don't know, a Chris Johnson out of Arizona State or a D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana. If one of those 2 guys are sitting there, if Colton Hood somehow, some way falls to 52, you're not going to be able to convince me to take Darrell Jackson, who's 91, over, say, Chris Johnson, who's 34 on our board. That's madness, right? So when you're doing these exercises, the information that you're gathering up, that you're tallying is, okay, it doesn't look like the mock drafts are going to model in a good enough spot for us to be able to get a defensive tackle at 52. Therefore, if we feel like that's a real issue and we need to go grab somebody in free agency, we got to be a little more aggressive in free agency. We got to make sure we go get our guy at defensive tackle because the board's not lining up. Cornerback, you got a lot more options there, right? Like Daniel Jeremiah said, there are a ton of starting caliber cornerback starters in the National Football League that you can get on day 2. Notice he said day 2. He didn't say second round. He's talking about second and third round, right? So that would lend me to believe you need to be more aggressive in free agency at defensive tackle as opposed to waiting for the draft. It doesn't mean that a perfect scenario couldn't fall in your lap. Kristen Miller falls to 45, you trade up from 52 and you nab him. That would be awesome, right? I just don't see that happening because, again, back to Bill Walsh, back to Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi and everybody that's ran NFL teams, everybody thinks they have a 3-tech and very few teams actually do. So that's the whole conversation around interior defensive lineman free agency and how that may or may not line up with how the Packers should attack free agency based off of the value in which is sitting on our draft board when we pick at 52. You can get one of these guys at 84, absolutely. But now you're going to be reaching at 84 on the 91st best prospect or the 99th best prospect. According to our board, it is what it is. And again, I've rattled off all kinds of success stories of how our board, I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but I mean, it is what it is. It seems like our board is, it seems like it's better than Goody's board. And again, I'm not evaluating the talent. I'm just taking the people across the draft community that I trust and putting everybody on the board. And Emilio behind the scenes is being able to tally up the formula to give us a grade based off of how everybody feels. It's kind of a consensus board in itself, but there's varying values based off of people's opinions, if that makes sense. So it's a tough look, man. It's a tough look. Let's see what Alan says here in the chat. He says, Goody is lucky he got love. Otherwise, he is below average for drafts. I don't want to say lucky, Alan. I want to disagree on the lucky comment because he did trade up to get him. We got to give credit where credit's due there. But I understand where you're coming from. I can't push back too hard on that comment, man. I think it's a fair point. And again, I like Goody. I think Goody's a good GM. So I don't think he's below average. I disagree with that. You know, we found enough good players late in the draft that he's not below average. But I do think he's a good GM. So maybe we can meet in the middle. You said he's below average. I said he's good. Maybe we can say he's above average, right? To me, that still seemed a little harsh because I do think he is a top 10 GM. I believe that. He's just not up there with John Schneider. I don't care how many Packer fans that pisses off. That dude's won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks, right? Usually when you say he's won multiple Super Bowls, they go, yeah, but he had so-and-so at quarterback, right? He's done it with 2 different quarterbacks now. What's that mean? That general manager has put together a roster that's good enough to win a Super Bowl in spite of who's playing quarterback. And he figured it out along the way. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. So that's a look at defensive tackle mixed in with a little draft talk. If you guys are watching this back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the interior defensive line free agent room. Do you feel like the fact that I only like 4, maybe you like 6, maybe you like 8, maybe you like this entire list here by Acme Packing Company, but of those 4, the fact that there's only 4, and then it's looking like you've got 5 to choose from. Actually, no, just 2 to choose from at 84. You're not going to be able to get an upper echelon defensive tackle in the draft if it falls the way we think it will on February 22nd here. You're going to have to be a little bit aggressive day one and go get a D tackle in free agency if Goody sees that as a need. He may be behind the scenes looking up going, I feel really good about our defensive tackles. Don't know how you can, but that may be the way he sees it, right? But let us know in the comments what you think about the whole situation. Make sure you hit like for us, hit subscribe, click that bell icon as well. We would greatly appreciate that. All right, let's move it along. And I'm just going to kind of wrap up by hanging out here in the chat. Let's see what everybody's saying in here real quick. We'll get us about 5 or 10 minutes here, just answering questions and all that stuff. Daryl Lazine in the chat says, Devin Lloyd would be a nice addition. Packer stack backer position. Completely agree, Daryl. He is a guy on my list. He's at the top of the list. I feel like the people that think Quay Walker is an elite player, Devin Lloyd is who they think Quay Walker is, based off what we've seen up to this point, right? It doesn't mean that Quay, and I know you guys get tired of hearing me say that, but I want to be very clear. Sometimes these players can turn it on and go to another level, and other guys just hit the freaking wall. We see it all the time, right? Multiple positions across the league. Over multiple decades, you could paint different stories. So I want to be clear with that. It's not like this is just set in stone analytics. Here's the better player and move on, right? But I completely agree, Daryl. I think Devin Lloyd, if you move on from Quay and Goody said, I'm going to pay Devin Lloyd $15 million per, I would be totally on board with that. Totally on board with it, because he has performed to that level that warrants that kind of money. Now, if your argument or anyone else's argument is stack backer isn't worth that much, I can understand that too, because you're going to have to pay Edgerrin Cooper soon too, and you don't want $30 million tied up in your stack backer room, right? If you do, you better have the damn the 2000 Ravens defense, right? You better feel like Ray Lewis is in the middle of the defense, and no one can gain a yard on you, right? And I don't think anybody's saying that Devin Lloyd will make that kind of impact. Nobody's saying that's a Ray Lewis-esque player, right? So I know that's an extreme comparison, but you got to kind of look at it like that a little bit, right? Soder says, I really think this coaching staff doesn't know how to develop players. Wow. They could have gotten Golden to run 1 of 5 routes on every play. Well, you're not going to like my response to this, Soder, and let him learn without having to adjust on the fly. Nope. Can't do it. There's not an offense in the league where you go, Golden, you're going to go out there and run a go route. You're going to run, this time you're going to run a post. This time you're going to run a slant. That's not how NFL offenses operate. Go follow, Soder, do me a favor. Go follow. There's a ton of people. Shouldn't do this live on the air, but hey, we're just hanging out talking. Let me find this list for you. I'm going to give you guys a few follows, and I want you to understand what we mean by this. So if I go to my list here on X, give me just 1 second, gang. 1 second here. I think I've got it saved. I got so many lists now. I started with, that's cool. I got 3 lists. Now I got like 15 lists, and I'm trying to keep up with everything. I think it was called X's and O's. So on X's and O's, I've got 6 members on this list that I created. Okay. These members, the QB school is a good one. Honest NFL. Okay. Coach Dan Casey's a good one. Brian Baldinger, not so much for quarterback play. Kurt Warner, slam dunk. Go follow him. Okay. And if you just type in football X's and O's, that's a good one too. But Honest Football is one where they show a lot of different things here involved. NFL offenses are so complex today, Soder, so complex that it's not as simple as this ain't our grandpappy's NFL. Hey, go out there and we're only going to give him 5 routes to run and that's it. And let's just try to get the ball in his hands. You've seen them do that to a certain extent with smoke routes, bubble routes, things like that. And fans rake Matt LaFleur's ass over the coal. He's got 4.2 speed. Run him down the field. We take shot plays and hit him in the hands. Was the pass off a little bit. He dove and missed time to dive. Was the throw off from Love? Regardless, those shot plays are much lower percentage plays, especially when they're bending a safety over the top. I felt like they gave him ample opportunities to make plays. Now, the choice aspect is the tough part. NFL offenses, the choice route aspect that's involved with this stuff is insane. I'm trying to find a good example here to show you what I'm talking about. And if you're saying, well, we just need to bend the offense, this is probably a good one right here. So when we do chalk talk, I try to simplify things. I'm simply showing you the end result. And I always say, we're not in the room. We don't know the choice routes that are involved, this and that. These are the type of plays that are ran in the NFL. Let's look at gun squeeze right, two jet all go. All right. Or jag also. Okay. This is a very simple one, right? You'll notice there's a couple of choice route aspects here, like you see with the H coming out of the backfield. He's basically got three options here. He can run what we call a stab route. He can run a cut, or he can run an out, right? You got some wheels involved there, right? And this is really the bend where it's almost like a switch concept where the ones go deep and the twos who were set in, one being a tight end on the left side, the U tight end, are going to bend out and kind of attack the outside once everybody commits to the ones on the outside. Go to this lower one right here. Look at the choice route. Okay. So you've got his top option is to run a dig route. But if the defense post snap rotates a certain way, or they play with just a yard or two of certain leverage, that now turns into a corner route. That's the stuff that Matthew Golden was screwing up. Okay. And this is not Clayton's opinion. This is something that Jordan Love said. And he didn't say Matthew Golden was screwing up routes. But what he said was, they said, "What do you think? Getting him more involved? That's why he's having better success now." And I'm kind of paraphrasing how the question was asked. And he said, "I think he's running a lot better routes, a lot crisper routes. He's got a better understanding of the offense." That was the nice way for Jordan Love, saying he's actually in the spot where he's supposed to be now, because these defenses study your concepts all week long. Let me try to paint a picture of what I'm talking about. If we come out and let's say that our most explosive plays, let's say our leading explosive plays in the passing game is when we're in a tray left look and we run a dagger slot cross combo, okay, which means the one is running a dig, the two stretching vertically, the three is running a crosser, okay? If we run that, and that's our top explosive play, the opposing defenses, when they're watching our 4-game saturation plus our last two head-to-head, basically 6 game saturation, your previous 4, last 2 head-to-head, and they identify, when they're in a tray left look, they like to run a dagger slot cross combo here, okay? Here's what we're going to do, guys. When they go to their tray left look, I want an extra hat playing underneath to help take that climb route on the backside on the second window of that climb route, okay? I also want a safety bending to the field side unless they're playing this boundary, whatever it is. Make sure that you've got a safety bracketing over the top to take the go route away from the two. And then I want to make sure that the weak side backer completely ignore the flat, and I want you to bend to a hook curl responsibility and take window 1 away from the dig. And then as the middle linebacker falls off of window 1 of the dig, he's going to drift to window 1 of the climb route. You see what I'm saying? These are the conversations that are happening behind the scenes in defensive meeting rooms. So they're taking that slot cross dagger concept combination away from our offense. How do we combat that? Matt LaFleur goes, "Hey guys, here's what they're going to try to do to take this away. So what I need you to do is whoever's the 3, whether it's the Y flex, or we've got our F actually playing 3 and our Y actually stretching the field vertically with Tucker or whoever. What I want you to do is read the second backer on that side of the field. If you see him flipping his hips to cover field side range, then I want you to break that off and run a curl route, what we call a slurl, I guess you could say. It's like you start to run that climb, which is similar to a slant. A slant's a lot shallower, but you're starting to run that climb, and now you see, oh crap, they've got far leverage. They're taking away the second window in that climb. Sit down on like a stab, right? So if he sits down on that stab, that guy's already bending outside trying to gain leverage because this dude's a freaking speed demon, right? I can't let him clear me to the sideline like we've seen Christian Watson do over and over and over again. Well, guess what? That stab route's wide open, catch it, and you know where your leverage is to turn and get yacked. Where Matthew Golden was screwing up was he would continue to run that climb route instead of breaking that stab off. Not specifically, theoretically speaking. That's how offenses work at the NFL level. It's not as simple as, why can't they just let him run a 1 route? Why can't they let him run it out? Why can't they run him? He does this well. Just let him run that. It's not that simple. If you play it that way, you're now allowing the defense to key in on what it is you're doing. That's why Romeo Doubs was so important to this offense. He was so important to this offense because him and Jordan Love were on the same page with all the choice routes. They know where each other's going to be. You're getting a little bit of that with Wicks too. And Wicks took a step forward last year. I'm excited to see what he does this year, although it might be too late because now you've kind of drafted his replacement, right? So we'll probably let him walk in free agency. So another one is Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed understands the choice routes. Now, there's arguments to be made that Jordan didn't put a good enough ball on him on that drop against the Bears that could have set everything up. My stance is it hit him in the hands. You got to catch it. I'm a big Jayden Reed fan. I'm still sold that Jayden Reed is that dude. I love Jayden Reed, right? But again, he understands the choice routes. What? Well, is that an indictment on Matthew Golden? Does that mean Matthew Golden's a bust? No. Jayden Reed is one of the rare exceptions that his rookie year, he caught choice routes like that. Now, pause, time out. When they drafted him, people were raking Goody over the coals, and I defended him. You know why? I went back 2 years in college, watched him at Michigan State, and said, guy, he was playing Z and moving Z. He can run crisp, deep routes and play underneath. He's twitching up underneath. It's just, does he have it here? And he did. He got it right away day one. I think Matthew Golden will pick up on these things, and it's going to unlock him this year. I do. But it wasn't lack of opportunities. They didn't trust him. There was lack of trust, absolutely, because he was running the wrong routes. Another example was, I think it was against Pittsburgh, where Jordan Love drops it in the basket. I mean, in the basket, like triple coverage to Christian Watson. If you go watch that, that's the perfect example of Matthew Golden, rather than knowing Watson is running that behind me, I've got to know my choice route aspect is I'm green light here, I'm green light there, but I'm definitely red light 100% taking this deeper than I need to. Well, the ball snapped, Jordan in a little bit of trouble. He picks up on that trouble, he being Matthew Golden. Oh, let me get a little bit of leverage on this guy. Just because you can gain leverage on your defender doesn't mean it's the right thing for the team. And I'm not saying Golden was being selfish. I'm simply saying that's the perfect example of he did not realize, oh, crap, I'm walking an extra defender and another body into eyesight on Christian Watson, who's already got to make a tough play here. That's a perfect example. And that's watching the tape. You catch little things like that. And that's why it's not as simple as just, hey, run this route. I wish it were, Soder, because Matthew Golden's got all the talent in the world, right? You could just go, hey, man, go out there and do this, go do that. But, I mean, I see Coach Lynn in the chat. Let's see if he has anything to say on this. Let's see. Let's start with all his comments here. Coach Lynn says, I think Goody and Matt LaFleur need to get on the same page of the type of players they want. Make sure they match. Completely agree, Coach. And we've removed the silos as much as we can, right, with the new structure of the organization that's been here since Mark Murphy did. I think that was a great move. So you've got less divider walls between the GM and the coaches you've ever had. But I agree. There needs to be a little bit more involvement there on both sides, on both sides. Yeah, Coach Lynn says his route running is on another world, talking about Golden being a stud. It's so crisp. That's the thing. Like, when he gets the choice routes down this year, I think he's going to be a great football player. I really, really do, man. Really do. Coach Lynn went on to say, needs to get with Reed and this all. Yes, because they're going to be very interchangeable. And if Matthew Golden can pick up on the choice routes and get a complete grab of the offense, what you're going to have with that situation is now Jayden Reed and Matthew Golden can be the same player at multiple spots. So when a team keys in on, they like to cheat the 2 to the 1 and run a dig behind a dagger concept. Now we can cheat. We don't even have to cheat. You might be able to cheat the 1 to the 2 and have him run the deep route. But there might be like a go with a corner choice attached. Well, now Matthew Golden's got that. That opens up another wrinkle, another layer in the playbook. And there's one thing I feel 100% confident on. Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur are on the same freaking page. They both know what they want. They both know what that needs to happen with the offense. It's just these players kind of catching up. I'll tell you somebody else who's got it is Tucker Kraft. And that's what hurt the most. And the fact that Matt LaFleur still had a top 5 passing offense with Tucker Kraft leaving last year is wild to me. It's absolutely wild. Coach Lynn says Golden needs to improve his routes on the run. Has tons of routes banked from year with lots of tape to learn from. That's the other thing too, Matt. Get him. He's got it, Coach. You know what? They've already done it, right? He's got the cut up. He's been studying it all year. He's out there working on his conditioning, the routes, everything else. Yeah, year 2 is going to be a lot of fun, especially with Tucker Kraft coming back healthy, Christian Watson being completely healthy. Man, if you go in the draft and you have someone like Tanner Koziel fall to you somehow, some way, and you can nab him at 120, and now you got a weapon there at the Y potentially flexed out and kind of taking over from Musgrave a little bit, boy, sky's the limit. Sky is the limit. Coach Lynn says Savion needs to be working out with Wicks and Watson this offseason. Really think he can be a stud. Watch his tape. Watch his early tape at TCU. As I'm reading that, Coach, the thing that pops in my mind is contested catches. And I love what you're thinking. Let's get him out of the jet sweep stuff, and let's let him stretch the field vertically because he is a catch point guy. I've never seen a player in college have such a high drop rate on routine catches, but so freaking dominant in contested catch rate. I think he led all of college football his last year at TCU in contested catch rate. It was insane. So I'm with you there. We're definitely on the same page there. 2-0 for this. Good to see you, buddy. Golden taking this likely touchdown from Wicks showed how his development was behind. Yeah. And again, I try to hold those thoughts for this, but when Love spoke about it and then other people were covering Love's comments on it, it's like, okay, other people are seeing it too. We showed it on tape without going, oh my God, this is horrible. Like I remember that play with Christian Watson. I'm like, man, Golden's got to know you can't walk that defender back there. You just can't do that. Right. So Coach Lynn, appreciate your input here, man. It's always nice to have somebody who's played receiver at a high level, coached at a high level. We greatly appreciate you in the chat, man. You're awesome. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what I was saying, Alan. Williams was a deep threat at TCU, absolutely. And again, what did we see this year? He was banged up. He graded out really good, right? He graded out like in the 60s, which is good for a rookie, but he didn't get to 100 snaps on the year. But I think of him out there playing on one freaking foot. He showed up to the stadium in a boot in New York, and then he makes that contested catch in the fourth quarter on like a 3rd and long, right? That's what you see. So, yeah, body size, late hands, contested catch ability. He doesn't have to be a crisp route runner to stretch the field. Put him on a choice with a go corner and a post and let the dude eat. And you know what? If they got to bend the coverage, imagine him on one side and Christian Watson on the other, right? They're going to have to bend the coverage one way or another, or they're going to have to play too high shell. And if they play too high shell, then you got Matthew Golden and or Jaden Reed underneath or Tucker Kraft underneath, and it really opens things up. You just got to put the fear of God in these defenses with Savion Williams right out the gate once he is healthy. The problem will be, how do you get him on the field as often as you want to when you've got Christian Watson on one side, Matthew Golden on the other, and, of course, Jaden Reed. Now, their approach may be, let's rotate Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden from the F to the Z. We'll put Watson at the X while we're doing that rotation and then work Savion in. That could be the case. I don't know. Time will tell for sure, though. So, yeah. All right. So, man, this was a fun conversation. I'd like to wrap up more shows talking with the chat. It was awesome. And again, I know we all don't agree on everything, guys. I get that. Please don't take my opinion as I'm right and you're wrong. Hopefully I back it up with enough data and enough tape talk to go, hey, here's what we've seen that says, that's probably off. But again, we can agree to disagree, and I don't ever want to come across like I'm condescending or anything like that. Hopefully that's not the case, but greatly appreciate everybody's input. It's a lot of fun getting in here talking ball with y'all. So I did not plan on doing an hour 20, but here we are. This was a blast. So if everybody would do me a big favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into the channel, make sure you click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live. I'll keep my eye and ear to the streets today and see if any news breaks in terms of special teams coordinator hire, anything like that, anything in between, maybe a roster restructure. We're on call, ready to do everything like that. And again, the best way to support what we do here at PTA is just join our Patreon community, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. You can always super chat in here. That's the same thing. We got multiple avenues where you can support the channel if you want to do so. We greatly appreciate it. Understand the show is free. We don't need a dime. We don't expect a dime, but it's always appreciated when you guys do that extra stuff for us. Did I miss any super chats? Mike Witt had, I think we got them all. Yeah, no, we got them all. We worked them in. Okay, good deal. So thank you all for the super chats. Mike Witt, appreciate you, buddy. Chris N, and then, of course, Soder with the super as well. Appreciate you, Soder. You're the man. So, yeah, the other thing is wherever you get your podcast, do me a big favor. Just go search Packer Fan Total Access, and you'll find this in podcast form. Make sure you're following us there. Like this content today isn't going out on PackerNet. We're just on there Monday through Friday because we were cluttering up Ryan's kind of gig over there. So you can find all the overflow here. So just make sure you subscribe to this wherever you get your podcast. You'll be able to find it there as well. So everybody have a great day. My name is Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
And we gone.
We out.
We're out. Bye, guys.